So, Marwan, Google search worked the same for everyone. A student sitting in rural India to a developer in Silicon Valley. And they got the same result. Should AI follow the same model, or does access need to work differently?
I think the access will be freedom. I think Google search was an incredible.
So, Marwan, Motorola, Nest, Google, very different companies, very different experiences. So, what is the one leadership principle that stayed same across all of them?
As a leader, you have to show adaptability. You have to evolve. Leadership, in my mind, also have to have.
So, if a company had built an AI platform today, CPU based, fully on premise, decentralized, with complete data sovereignty and no dependency on centralized computing systems, is that what the industry actually needs right now, or would you be skeptical?
The answer is absolutely.
AI is one of the most exciting conversations of our time, but it raises big challenges around data sovereignty, data privacy, and if AI is truly reachable to everyone. To navigate these challenges, we have someone who has been at the heart of modern technology, from building Nest to advising Google and then Alphabet. Welcome, Marwan Fawaz. It's truly a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. Great to see you again, Priya. And I'm looking forward to this
Yes.
conversation.
Absolutely, Marwan. Happy to have you here today. And so, Marwan, before we get into the big questions, I'd want to ask something very close to your heart. I've heard that there's a song which is really close to your heart, and there's an interesting story behind it, which is Hotel California by the Eagles, which happens to be one of my favorite as well, and I think for many of us. So tell us about that.
My goodness, you have done your research. I'm sure you saw that
Yes.
maybe on a podcast somewhere. I tell the story quite often because it's a great story. I like growing up in Lebanon. You only spoke Arabic and French, and didn't speak a word of English until my teen years. And the first English words I memorized and learned was that song, Hotel California. Beautiful song. Didn't understand every word in it, but memorized it. And also a side story, Priya, I've never seen the Eagles perform in concert until 2 months ago, where they had a concert at the Sphere in Las Vegas, and I got to experience them live, which was kind of emotional. I was there with my wife. What an incredible venue, and I recorded the whole thing on my phone, and it's awesome. Sometimes I play it back and listen to it.
I can understand. I mean, now I'm feeling like I'm to hear that song because I have also heard it multiple times and I made my musician friends, play it on the guitar or maybe sing it. So it has been close to my heart as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's great. So we
Yeah,
have something in common.
absolutely. And I think also heard that you learned English partly from that song.
Yeah, I mean, I had to, I had to learn English because I left Lebanon during some tough times in that country and went to West Africa, Liberia. And so I had to go to night school, learn English when I finished my high school. So I had to go back and translate and understand what was in that song. So I don't know what some of the terms in it, but back then you had to look up in dictionaries, like, what does this mean? The smell of
Yeah.
Calidas. What is Calidas?
All right, Marwa. So coming to our first question. You helped grow Nest into a significant company before its acquisition by Google. So, what was that journey like? And what is the one moment from that time that you could share with us today?
Like Nest was probably, I would say professionally, was the most fun I've had working somewhere. It was a unique company, building beautiful products. It was a company that was founded with Apple DNA, and then hybrid Google DNA came together. It was intellectually very challenging. Culturally, it was interesting. Look, my role was, after one of the founders left, was to scale the business, grow the business, localize it to many different countries around the world, launch new products, which we all did that. And it became a significant, meaningful business that it was merged back into Google from Alphabet. So it was a lot of fun. Special moments, like we've we ideated a lot on product and solutions that never saw the daylight. Um, those were fun times. You know, we were looking at products like using radar in the home around presence of movements and patterns of behavior. Um, but the compute back then was so expensive; it just didn't pan out. It was really complex to do. Now this is 8 years ago. Um, you know, we looked at mini drones and robots in the home. Again, 8 years ago. It seems like a long time. Yours and we tested a lot of stuff and we looked at it and we just financially feasibility to the consumer wasn't there. It would have been too expensive to launch, and the business plan didn't make a lot of sense. I wish we had the tools that we have today
Yes.
about AI, not, you know, just AI in terms of, you know, modeling AI around physical AI and capabilities and design, those products. Actually, I know the same products that I just mentioned will probably see either being deployed and piloted in the market by many different companies. And I think that a lot of that is because of AI capabilities.
Yes. So previously we had these physical robots and now we have AI robots. So I think within 8 years, things have changed massively.
Yeah, there will be much smarter robots with a lot of compute capability built into them, which I'm sure we're going to get to at some point.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get them. Yes. So Marwan, Motorola, Nest, Google, very different companies, very different experiences. So what is the one leadership principle that stayed same across all of them?
You're right. They were all different, including where I'm at today, which is mostly advisory board work. The one thing consistent, maybe there are a couple of things I would say. One is that as a leader, you have to show adaptability. You have to evolve. You have to evolve because the businesses that you manage are different than before. There are different cultures. People sometimes underestimate how important culture in a company is. You have to make sure you present your own values as part of that culture and what that means to you. And then the second part is leadership. In my mind, also have to have the right amount of empathy and managing large organization, leading people, inspiring people, and so those two were really common in my career, especially at the later end of career when I started running large organizations. You know, even from my broadband and cable days to Motorola to Nest, Google, and now being on the board of public and private companies. You know, I still rely on that. Those are the two things that are important to me, and then just continue learning. So my role now is mostly advisor, coach. Drive the right governance, strategic guidance. It's a little different than operational role, but those two principles still guide me professionally and personally.
Definitely. And I believe this, I mean, especially empathy, which lacks in most people nowadays. And that is one of the most important values and principle that we can carry with us.
Well, people underestimate that when you evaluate a
Yes,
leader and you don't have that. Typically, when I evaluate someone for whatever role that I have an opportunity to judge, that's one I look for immediately, because that ties very closely to the cultural point that I mentioned earlier.
couldn't agree more to it, Marwan. So, Marwan, coming to the next question. Smart home devices are everywhere now. How much privacy can an individual protect, especially with AI being built into these devices? And if there are any questions a person can ask before, buying a smart home device.
No, look, it's a great question. It's a very important question. It's an important question not just from a business perspective. It's an important question as a consumer to understand. Unfortunately, the connected home is still highly fractured. When you look globally, there are so many solutions. You, as a consumer, even with even with government protections and policies and laws that are passed, most of them, when I look at them, they put the burden on the consumers. Like you and I don't have time to read a 50 to 100-page term of service agreement of what it
Yes,
means
yeah.
for privacy. We don't read that. We just check the mark and
Never read
we go.
read that. Yeah.
One time I read it because I've like, this is an interesting company. Maybe I should read what's in there. But Today, I can
Yeah.
just upload it to Gemini, and it tells me if it's good or bad. Um,
Yeah.
so, like when I was at Nest, and even today, and working with NRG, um, and the smart home solutions we have there, there's one very important principle that are key that I tell people that they need to understand is the consumer should always be in control of their privacy. That is the important principle. And the second is transparency as a solution or hardware provider or service provider. You have to provide those transparency about what are you collecting, what data are you collecting, how are you collecting, when you're collecting it, what are you using it for. So I tell, and sometimes, so as you do that, you have to understand that you are bringing a company, a companion company into your home, for example, or business, and they're going to know a lot about you. The question is, how much do you want to share? So hence, as a consumer, you have to be in control. And sadly, like there are companies out there that I don't know what they do. I don't trust what they do, and they provide solutions. And I ask my friends, what do you use in your home? From thermostats to smoke detectors to camera to a hub. And they tell me this off-brand name. And I said, like, do you know what they're collecting about you, what they're using? Like, you know what cloud they're storing your information? Are you in control? And those are questions I tell everybody in consumers. You have to ask those questions. Like what the advice I give is really about when you sign for a device that collects a lot of information about you and your family and your home, you have to sign up with an ecosystem. And you have to have that ecosystem and understand, can I rely on this ecosystem? Can I rely on this company? Is it a company that has the right principles in protecting my information? Can I delete my information when I wanted to? Can I share certain things and share not other things? That's the control piece as a consumer. You have to know and really educate yourself. And you know what, Priya? It gets a lot more complicated and sophisticated because of the incredible AI tools today, because these tools have gone from just modeling to inference and reasoning. Now they can identify patterns. They can show things um, that you even yourself don't, predict things, but what's going to happen in next steps. That's why it's paramount today for people to understand the rights around what the right privacy. But the second part of your question is about what question do you ask, as about devices and connected home. So we talked about privacy. The second part is really obsolescence. Is this a product? It's going to stay with me for a while, and it's and people expect, whether you buy an appliance, you expect certain life cycle of that appliance. We buy appliances that will last 10 to 15 years. We buy cameras that should last us 5 years plus. You know, the mobile cell, thankfully, that cycle has increased a little bit to 18 months to 24 months. It used to be 12 months. So we have an expectation of a cycle. And so you have to understand that if that device have the right support and software management to keep it performing as it should be, to keep it updated and secure, and also to keep the right information and data. So those are the right things that you should ask as a consumer. And then the last thing I will add to that is this device sustainable? Device sustainable. And what I mean sustainable meaning is it there are so limited resources on our planet. We can't continue to recycle. So are you building it with sustainable products? Um, and then again, these are principles that we had at Nest and principles that we have today at Vivint and NRG. And so those consumers are not well informed. And I think the burden is on companies and government to inform the consumers about the things to ask about, whether it's privacy, the obsolescence of the product, support, life cycle. Those are the things I recommend to my friends when they ask me about certain products.
Maran, actually, my next question is also somewhat connected to what you just said, the sustainability, right? So
Yes.
if every device is becoming AI enabled in today's time, so does that mean that we have to replace all the existing devices? And to add to that, data centers are consuming massive amounts of power and water just to run AI. Is the industry being honest about what all of these are costing on our planet?
Again, great questions. Let's take the first one. I hope the answer is no. I hope I don't have to replace every single device in my home and with devices that have additional compute capabilities so they can run smarter AI. I don't think so. I can tell you based on my visibility of ecosystems that built by large hyperscalers, I don't think they go on there's like we have to replace every device. What they're building ecosystems to collect what's coming from those devices and make them smarter. And if you want to augment them, you don't necessarily have to replace every single device. You'll have companion devices that are attached and onboarded and added to them to do that. There's a debate today about how much compute, like when we build, for example, cameras and thermostats at Nest, there's enough compute to do the right things locally. For example, if you lost connectivity to the cloud or the thermostats still have to function. They still have to keep you cool, they keep you warm, and have to have the right schedule, even if it's not connected. So it has to have certain capability inside it. So on devices related to consumer, I don't think there's going to be a wholesale replacement. I think there's going to be companion devices, and there's going to be models that are specific and local to those devices to make them smarter and more functional in the future. And that really, it's a principle today that most companies should design, and it applies not only home, it applies for the businesses and a large industry. As I said before, we have limited resources. There's certainly a lot of geopolitical conversations about rare earth minerals and how much is available. But a lot of that already exists in our homes and exists in our cars and exists in our industries. So I think recycling some of that with the right augmented solutions, AI solutions on top, is the right model. The second part of the question is about responsibilities in building these behemoth data centers and the energy, water requirements. I was watching a news story last night where there's a congresswoman who took a jar of murky water to Congress to show what this data center in Georgia that are being built by Meta that's causing the local community water all of a sudden because they use so much water now. A different type of water is being recycled. It's like some of that is, again, it goes back about how responsible are the companies. And sadly, I cannot tell you that all of them are responsible. There are some who are extremely responsible. I know, being part of energy, there are companies we work with, very responsible. I mean, they look at environmental impact, resources. In fact, they're looking at technology to make sure that less water is needed for cooling. In fact, there are different cooling techniques to minimize the use of water. That bucket makes me feel good. There's a bucket of companies, mostly financial sponsors, really, not hyperscalers, financial sponsors who are building very large data centers or new companies going into that space. I don't feel good about, having the right principles for them that they will look out for, things like environmental impact, water resources. And the most important part of this, you said energy needs. And energy needs, having a front row seat, being part of an energy company. We see that and we understand that very closely. So, unfortunately, the answer to your questions is not every size fits all. Some are and some are not. And I think this is where government and local authorities have to make sure that they have the right rules. It's what's happening right now. There's a race. And so there's a race
Yes.
around and how fast can you build these data centers and provide compute with the right, obviously, inference and reasoning engines. And every one of those companies, from the hyperscalers to the smaller companies, are just afraid that they're going to be left behind if they don't build it initially. I disagree with that. I think the architecture is going to evolve. I know we're going to talk about that a little differently here later. So, long answer to your questions is it's a mixed response.
We can just hope that we can save our planet while, getting into the AI and the modern technology.
Yeah, I'm optimistic more than the average person that AI will do good for the planet. Like with any technology, we are humans. Good humans will use it to do good things, and bad humans will use it to do bad things. History tells us that good humans will eventually prevail, and we'll have to protect against the bad
Definitely.
ones.
Yes, let's just hope that. So, Marwan, coming back to what you said previously. So, you said you were worried about your friends using specific kind of brands, right, in their homes, like the devices and everything. So, if data that it travels from your home to a centralized computing system, how risky is that for an average consumer? And is on-device AI actually where things are heading, or you think it's just a marketing claim right now?
Um, I don't think it's a marketing claim. I think on-device AI is happening. I know, for example, my mobile phone, my Pixel 10 mobile phone has on-device compute capability, and the next generation will have more. I know, for example, that um, cameras that are being built by company that I'm associated with, or companies that I know very well, are adding, additional capability for on-device compute to not just around privacy issue and information data collection, but also about localizing models to do the right things if there's instability or interruption in that connection to the cloud. I think that hybrid model, in my mind, is the right model for the future. I don't believe everything has to go completely to the cloud. I know we'll talk about the edge a little bit and how important that is. Where today the focus around this brute force behemoth data centers with incredible capabilities. I think you're going to see a next wave of AI investment going into more of these micro models, small models, micro compute, how to manage that, how to collect it, how to make it on-prem a lot more effective. I think that's the right model of the future.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more, Marwan. So, Marwan, coming to the next question. The internet was designed to be decentralized and distributed, yet we still operate in a centralized manner. Does that create a fundamental security risk, especially for smart home and IoT devices?
Yeah, it does. Because, you know, the, there are vulnerability in very large network, very large clouds. And we see it on a weekly basis. The other day there's an AWS cluster that went down in certain part of the United States, and the large brand companies could not perform because they couldn't connect. So the companies are adjusting to that and make it a lot more distributed. Um, and there are tools that are being developed, that will make even it easier to find the vulnerabilities. Mythos, which is an anthropic model that has yet to be released, is scaring a lot of CIOs out there because as soon as they start testing it, it's found incredible amount of vulnerabilities in large networks and clouds, even some local areas. And so I think everyone is racing to figure out where are those vulnerabilities, how to change the model. And, most companies today, including the ones I work with, we try to, as much as possible, to keep a lot of our data on-prem, and managing, running models or in solutions. I think you'll see that trend very important, and CIOs will insist on that, because again, if connectivity is lost, if there's interruption because of security issues, you can still operate and function as a company locally and find different alternate way to support your clients, residential, commercial, whatever that is.
Yes, somewhere we can say that is the future.
I think a lot of it is there today. But to your point, I think there's still a heavy reliance on this, high concentrated cloud compute connectivities, and that's the more distributors. Like I started. I was lucky enough to be part of the early pioneers of broadband, um, and that's like in the mid '90s, a long time ago, maybe probably before you were born, Priyam. Um, so we back then we just wanted to get, point to point connection and build broadband. And really took us almost 25 years to get it where where the network is sustainable and to have access to as many people. Even as of today, maybe 90% of the people have the right access of broadband. It takes time. I think with AI, it has to be faster. I know we'll come back to that. So And networks evolve over time, and they have to they continue to, and the right investments are being put in the right places for that.
So now, Marwan, I have a very interesting question for you. Our human brain runs on just 5 watts and produces remarkable intelligence. Yet AI needs gigawatts. Isn't that a paradox in itself? And you sit on the board of an energy company. To take AI to 3 billion people, we need to grow from 6 gigawatts to 22 gigawatts. Is that gap actually solvable in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, let's start with the brain, and I'll comment on the 6 to 22. I think that's local here to
Yes.
energy. The brain is a marvelous, incredible biological design. Um,
Yes.
and it is incredibly efficient. You're right. It uses, I think, on an average, depending on the size of person and the age of the person, 5 to 15 watts. Somebody was showing me this statistics the other day, which is related to your question. So if you and I were trying to solve a very simple math question, that math question, let's say it's what is 9 times 10, and I would say 9 times 7 is 90. Easy questions, and for me to answer that answer, I probably used anywhere between 10 to 20 joules, which is 1/100th of a watt in my brain. That same query, if I put it on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, will use about 50 times more energy, 50x. So you can imagine the inefficiencies. So you mentioned these incredible gigawatts. You can measure the efficiencies, how you know, from our brains. And there's this debate about um, singularities and AGI. Like I don't think we're that close to it yet, because there are this limiting factor, which is the energy needed. That limit, like again, having a front row seat of that, being a part of an energy company, and we describe this as the energy super cycle demand, meaning the demand is exceeding all of the energy companies' capabilities to provide for those needs. Um, and energy companies don't think of terms of, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We think of term of 10, 20 years, because to build a large generations, whatever that type of generation is, takes time, and takes a lot of capital and efforts to get it there. So, look, I think we have to obviously keep up with demand by building more generations. And there are laws that are being passed in a lot of the states here, that data centers, what we call bring your own generations with you, meaning have energy companies partner that doesn't impact existing grids. And the grid is very important, because you cannot put that much stress on the grid. So you have to invest in the grid to support that. Um, and I think that's the right model. And that model is a winning model, where you don't impact consumer affordability and put a lot of pressure on the grid by adding a lot of additional load. So lots of projects, not just by company I work with, but all energy companies, not only in North America, but around the world, you know, um, I think the best solution for this is finding energy needs where energy is underused versus energy that is being supplied to, commercial and residential and industrial areas. Energy is um, the most complex issue to solve right now. There are a lot of, like, we hear a lot about nuclear and renewable. The nuclear still have a long way to go. Even the small modular reactors, the SMRs. Um, Obviously, all energy companies are looking at this technology, but there are a lot of steps. It's not like you can go put an SMR next to a data centers and in a year turn it on. It takes a long term, and that long term is 5 to 10 years. I just came back from Tibet not too long ago, and we were driving this main highway, and I saw this incredible amount of solar farms. Solar farms like everywhere in Tibet. Is like, so we stopped in one place. I was looking, where's the storage of you have to have solar for solar to work effectively. You have to have the right storage behind it. And only one of them, I think, I could see there's enough storage. Like battery technology is so important to make solar so much more effective and cost neutral, um, for affordability. That's coming. There's technology for batteries is getting better, and There's a race to make it more efficient for storage. Renewable plays a key part of what we need to do, to your point about saving our planet. Um, so renewable is very important. But this hybrid solution about combustion engines, big turbines that still need you still need type of energy that provide that you get gas in the air. Um,
Yes.
that's I think that hybrid model will have to exist for a while to keep up with this super cycle of demand and have the right transition over time. I think those are the things that from an energy perspective, companies look at and also work closely with responsible data centers builders, underlined responsible.
Yes, that is the perfect word. So, Marwan, everyone assumes AI need more compute, more data centers, and more power. But what if the real breakthrough is the opposite? Smaller, efficient models running closer to where the data actually lives. And is that path being taken and or underestimated?
It's definitely been underestimated. I don't think it's one versus the other. I think it's a hybrid solution for both, where it's being underestimated because not enough investment going into edge compute capability, on-prem capability, smaller models. There are more. We're starting to see the right trend for that. I think the long-term solutions is to have the capability. We were talking about connectivity and clouds, security of that. Same applies to that, where for data governance, for privacy and security, you have to have that. So the model have to evolve to that. And I know companies, you and I know a company, and I'm excited about what they're doing, what the Rishikesh and team doing around that. Was trying to solve for that edge model compute with availability. Like, so large data center built with these very capable GPUs, and they continue to advance now in so many ways, and they need incredible amount of capital and power. Imagine if you can move to the edge where you could use typical compute that we use today in our laptops or other existing data centers. That is very powerful. So I joke with my friends, Priya, was like data center friends, and I say to them, if I'm an alien planet and you literally see these data centers from space, they're so huge. If I'm an alien planet and I don't like your planets, and I know all these data centers, they're easily you can find them. I can take out these data centers, and you guys are, essentially are, you know, uh, have no capability to do much. So the hybrid model is very important to have to distribute the capabilities of AI compute across for different evolving networks.
So, Marwan, Google search worked the same for everyone. A student sitting in rural India to a developer in Silicon Valley. And they got the same result. Should AI follow the same model or does access need to work differently?
Yeah, I think the access will be different, Priyam. I think Google search was an incredible revolutionary product
Yes.
that was built as ubiquitous access everywhere and free. But the model was built on monetized by advertising. That's the model, and and it was built around simplicity. I think AI is different. I think we see it today, as a as a user, for example, of Gemini. Like a couple of days ago, I got an update like, hey, there's this different tiers of services. So I think a tiered paid approach is where things are today. And unfortunately, there's an affordability part of this because those models, the subscriptions is not trivial or not cheap. So the monetization, I think, of AI solutions and from data centers all the way down to the applications are going to happen on a tiered level for companies as well as for individual users. And so I think where you were leading with your question around what about access and affordability for the rest of the world?
Yes.
That I was looking at this the status about AI usage. Like there's roughly a little over 8 billion people on the planet today, maybe 1.5 billion, daily active users of AI. And it's less than 50 million subscription so far. So, and that 50 million subscription is where the most powerful AI capabilities are. So it's still a tiny
Yes,
part of the overall
absolutely.
humanity um, expectations and access. I'll go back to broadband as an example again. Like we started in the mid '90s, and it took really almost 25 years to have it ubiquitous and accessible. And I'm so happy and glad that those rural areas now and different areas, and there's competition from satellite services like, Amazon Leo that's coming soon, Starlink, and there are different Chinese satellite broadband providers. So broadband access is ubiquitous. And now you have mobility with 5G going to 6G. It took us a long time to get there, right? I don't think we can afford 25 years to have AI access for everybody around the planet. And the reason I say that because like I think AI is the most disruptive things I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm old enough to have been through so many technological cycles. This is the most powerful, most disruptive, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people share that. And the capabilities is incredible and transformational for any industry in any space. I don't think we can afford to wait 25 years to reach that rural school that you went to in India to give them access to these incredible AI tools that makes humanity so much better than we are today. There should be the right rules and policies to make sure access to AI solutions for all long term is really key part of those policies and affordable. So it's like mobile service. The first thing people buy their phone or lease their phone. And then we have to make it as affordable as that for the future, and not
Yes,
only, give, to have if you're a power user, you have to pay a couple $100 a month. Like the average person that lives in Nigeria or, countries that are not as rich as, the Western world, that will be tough. That'll be tough. But I don't think we should wait that long to get there. And there's a way to solve it, obviously.
yes, Marwan, I totally agree to that. And I hope the affordability and accessibility is not somewhere in the future, but it lies in the present time. And we can see
I
the
do
change
too.
in a very short span of time.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I do as well. I think you'll see solutions. I'm excited about what Zero Labs and Compact AI products trying to do, um, and kind of really recycling compute capabilities that exist today. Take advantage of that and build specific models to drive that and provide capabilities that in a very monolithic, very large data centers keep getting closer to the users.
Absolutely. High five on that.
Yeah.
So, Marwan, next question. So, this is a scenario. So, if a company had built an AI platform today, CPU based, fully on premise, decentralized, with complete data sovereignty and no dependency on centralized computing systems, is that what the industry actually needs right now? Or would you be skeptical?
The answer is absolutely yes. And I mentioned Zero Labs. I think that's what Zero Labs trying to solve. Um, it is needed around the key things you mentioned: accessibility, affordability, availability, reliability, secure. And that last again, that last part is underestimated. The secure meaning I control my data. I control my privacy. If I'm a large corporation, I'm controlling where it sits and how I could make sure it's protected, from malware, for people trying to have access to that they shouldn't have. The same thing as we started this interview with a conversation about privacy in the home and devices. And so, for all those reasons, we need to invest in edge on-prem solutions, small, models, micro models, with the right platform to really scale that long term.
Definitely. So, Marwan, we have reached to the last question of this podcast. So, I would want to continue this even longer.
Hopefully, to do another one later.
Absolutely, we will do that. Yes. So, Marwan, what would you say to the next generation of engineers about what this moment in AI demands of them? Not just as technologists, but also as humans, like you mentioned, we need to have empathy and those values. What would you say?
Yeah, a great question to finish with. About almost 9 months. Oh, it's actually exactly a year ago. I gave a commencement speech at my alma mater at California State in Long Beach, and I talked about those things. And I was just talking to engineers because I graduated from there. And um, obviously, I talked about AI, and I'm sure they were all excited and scared about what does that mean to them. But there are principles, and I think that's what you're leading with your questions. Like I tell them, don't build solutions and engineer solutions because they look cool. Build them for advancement of humans. Build them for the right reasons. We talked about sustainability. We talked about resources. We talked about solving problems to improve people's life. Um, but build them with the principle under it with empathy, the right ethics, um, and rely on that as your guiding principles. Um, leave like you tell your children, leave this world better than you found it. And engineers have an incredibly important responsibility to do the right things. And you always hope and pray that there are a lot. For one bad engineers, there are nine great engineers that think the same way with these principles that I just mentioned. That's the
I
advice I
love
give
that sentence,
engineers.
Marwan.
Yeah.
I love that sentence. Leave the world better than you found it. So, very amazing sentence. Yes, yes, amazing. So, Marwan, honestly, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for the valuable conversation. And thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
for your honesty. Yes. And also for your patience, because we did a lot of trials before going live, and for sharing what you have seen from the inside. We hope everyone watching this podcast today takes something meaningful out of it.
Thank you so much, Priyam. I've truly enjoyed this and hope to see you again in the future.
Same
As
here.
an engineer, I completely empathize with. You have to get it right first, and it took us a while, but we got it. Thank you for your patience.
So, we have more exciting conversations coming your way. Subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any updates. Until next time, goodbye.